Welcome, everybody, to Facebook Live with Noel Walsh on January 29th, 2018. And we have a very special guest. I did a poll in my group, Conquer What You Chase, Sales Pros, and the most voted sales professional, sales closer, sales master that everybody wanted to hear from was the legendary Ben Gay. Ben Gay is known as the master closer, the sales infiltrator, and a sales and marketing expert. If you are not following Ben Gay on Facebook, I recommend you do that right now. So Ben, before we get started and I start asking you the questions on this very special Q&A interview, give us a little background about yourself.
An old guy, 70 plus, and from Atlanta, Georgia. Been in selling my entire life that I can remember, whether we were selling Krispy Kreme donuts door to door as a fundraiser or saltwater taffy or whatever. I was always number one because I worked hard. My dad gave me a few little tips, so I won Columbia bicycles and packs of things. I forget all the things, but mainly I liked the winning aspect, beating my friends in a positive way. And went from that to my dad lent me a lawnmower, said go out during the summer, get up and do something. And if you're not, go mow lawns. So I started mowing lawns in the hot growing season in Atlanta. Quickly discovered I didn't like physical labor. Came back with a lawnmower and said, Dad, I'm sorry. I don't want to do this. He said, all right, but you're going to, but I'll show you a little trick. You go sell the jobs, hire your friends to do it, split the money. I said, will they do that? And he said, sure they will, because you're going to get a lot more for the job than they would have gotten individually or that you would have gotten individually. The little trick was, want to mow your yard? We have no set fee. You pay us what you think it's worth. He said, then you go inspect the job and collect the money. And he said, I promise you it'll be more than you'd expected. Well, it was 2 or 3 times more than I expected. So in the growing season in Atlanta, I always had 20, 25 kids working for me. And I was making as much or more money in the 4 or 5 month growing season than a lot of the adults in my neighborhood were. So that sort of hooked me some more. And then I went to work for Macy's, became their top salesperson in the housewares department, then left there, became a manufacturer's rep, traveling throughout the Southeast as a very young man. And as in 2021, that era, worked for my father as a food broker for a while. And then one day I answered an ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Wednesday, September 15th, 1965. It said, if you know anything about marketing plans and want to make more money, call this number. Well, I didn't know what a marketing plan was, but I needed to make more money. I was putting my wife at the time, she's passed away now, but I was putting my first wife through nursing school on $100 a week. Now, you young people got to adjust that for inflation. That would be $1,000 a week now, but it was not, it wasn't roll in the hay, aren't we having a good time type money. So I dialed the number. Guy answered the phone. His name, it turned out to be Bill Dempsey. And I began interviewing him, as only a young smart aleck can do, to see if I was going to lend my talents to whatever he was doing. And about halfway, not halfway in the interview, I guess over halfway in the interview, because I didn't know the interview was coming to a halt, he said, Mr. Gay, before you question me anymore, let me point out I'm not the man standing in a phone booth answering want ads. For you youngsters, a phone booth was a tin box or aluminum box, but when you phoned from one, you could tell they were phoning. It's like calling from inside a trash can. He said, where are you located? And I said, well, I'm on the corner of whatever and whatever. And he said, oh, you're just a few blocks from my office. You have 10 minutes to be standing in front of my desk or never call this number again. He slammed down the phone. So my running buddy and business partner, as it turned out, Jimmy Rucker, came around at that moment to pick me up from the store we were calling on. And I jumped in the car like Batman and Robin. I said, quick, 1447 West Peachtree Street. And he said, what's up? I said, we're going to be rich. So he made a U-turn in the middle of the street. We zoomed down a few blocks to that building, went in, suite 300. And at noon, with a couple of minutes to spare, I went skidding into the office. There was a curly-headed guy sitting there, and after I checked in with the receptionist, I said, "Hi, my name's Ben Gay," and he laughed. And I said, "Why are you laughing at my name? What's yours?" And I acted like I didn't know why he was laughing at my name. I knew. I said, "What's yours?" And he said, "Zig Ziglar." I said, "With a name like Zig Ziglar, you're laughing at Ben Gay? You got to be kidding me." Well, Zig had answered the same ad I had answered. He was 18 years older than I was, but he hadn't had a big hit yet. He was selling cookware in Columbia, South Carolina. So we both went into the interview, which turned out to be an opportunity meeting with the three of us in it. And when they got finished, I agreed to join $91.42 for a one-pack, one of everything in the basic Holiday Magic cosmetic line. And we walked out the door, and Rucker said, I remember, he said, "So we're going to be selling cosmetics?" I said, "We're going to be doing whatever they tell us to do. We're going to learn how to do this." Well, I went through some ups and downs, which we can cover if we have time and it's pertinent. But I went from $100 a week stacking pork and bean cans in grocery stores to $100,000 in my first year, part-time. In today's money, that's $1 million a year, part-time. I had to split it with Rucker. The first 6 months, we didn't make anything because I wouldn't learn the scripts. I just thought all you had to do was smile and be friendly. Turned out that wasn't enough. And we were off and running. So September 15th, 1965, I began a rocket ride. I was joining a company that had been going for just almost exactly a year. Hadn't done a whole lot yet, but was growing rapidly. And join their business. And I tell people it's like walking up a ramp, not knowing where the ramp's going. The door slams behind you and you figure out you have gotten on a rocket ship, and it took off. By being there, I was associating with Zig Ziglar. Rather quickly, I brought in Earl Nightingale to be the voice of the company. J. Douglas Edwards was one of my personal trainers. Dr. Napoleon Hill was hired by the owner of the company to be my personal coach. We didn't call it that back then. But Dr. Napoleon Hill had a big part in my life. And from that $91.42 investment, I have made millions of dollars, traveled all over the world, what was then the free world. I haven't yet been to China, although I'm about to, and haven't been to Russia, and probably won't for a while, but whatever. I've made 5,000 paid appearances over those years, and I've had a grand time making a tremendous amount of money. And more importantly, once you get money out of the way, you don't have to worry about it. More importantly is the people I've met, people like you, the new young guns, and people who've gone on before me. Almost all of my mentors. I was the kid in the group when I joined, so they're all or either retired or moved on to their great reward. And I'm sort of the last man standing from that era through blind luck and age when I joined.
No, and that's a great share. And so thank you too for the compliment about the new young guns. And we connected on a call. I messaged you on Facebook just about 2 years ago. I remember it was right when I left retail full time. Well, I was doing retail and doing my sales training, living in St. George, Utah, where I live, and selling cars in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I remember I reached out to you and I set an appointment with you. And so everybody who knows, if you want to talk to Ben, you have to set an appointment. And he's got a scheduled time, which he should have. And so anyways, we scheduled a call, and I think we talked for like an hour and a half. And you know, one of the best takeaways I had from it was the information you gave me was simple, and I knew a lot of it. But what you shared with me made it relative because of my respect for you, and I know how many and so many respected you, that even though it wasn't this magic dust that so many salespeople want that doesn't exist, it was simple information, but when you shared it with me, it made it that much more relative, that it also made it that much more easy to implement in my life and to see the value in it, rather than looking past something simple. So I want to thank you, and I've had the opportunity to have, I don't know, 4 or 5 phone conversations with you, and every time I do have a conversation with you, you just fill me with so many nuggets. And same thing with with some of Og Mandino's books and Napoleon Hill's books, it's not like it's groundbreaking information. It's a lot of stuff that we know, but we see the relativeness of it.
And it also helps, in my opinion, to see someone who's done it. Og was a good friend of mine, and he worked for us I don't mean 24 hours a day, but he worked for us in seminars and so on. And, I read his books and they were great and, ooh and ah and everything. But when I sat down and met him and found out it really was true that he was a falling down, dead drunk, alcoholic, suicidal, etc., but he applied these principles and his life turned around and he became a legend in his own time. Well, when you're sitting there, at a table, just the two of you, and you go, oh, these principles work, and there he is, he did it. And that, I think, is what I bring to people, if anything. First of all, I bring the teachings of Dr. Hill and Og Mandino and Earl Nightingale and so on along. But I also William Penpatrick, who owned Holiday Magic and was my boss. I hate the term boss, but he owned the company and I didn't, when I joined it and when I was president of it. Bill used to say, Ben, I'm going to buy a glass cage, put you in it with a hitch, drag it around to shopping centers all over the United States with a sign on it. If he can make it, anybody can. And his point was well taken. I'm a high school graduate, barely. I was a hell raiser. I'm in contact with some of my old high school friends, and I'm glad everybody didn't get to see them. They're forever bringing up situations that we got into that perhaps don't fit my image today. So I was headed probably for a mundane job for the rest of my life or prison. Accidentally killing somebody drunk in a car or something. I don't know. But if I can do it, to all of your listeners and viewers tonight, if Ben Gay can do it, anybody can do it. All I did was take my Southern heritage. I'm a gentleman. Learn some scripting, and then get into one of the secrets, as you know, that I teach about selling is the vast majority in selling goes away problems if, I say 85%, but that's one of the many statistics in my life I just made up, but it sounds good, and I think it's about right. About 85% of the problems in selling go away if you sell a quality product that's competitively priced, doesn't have to be the cheapest, but competitively priced, and you spend your day talking to qualified people. And then if you remind me, I don't want to do it now, but if you remind me, I have a closing rate of about 86% and have ever since I started keeping track. In the early years, I didn't know you're supposed to keep track, but about 86% with basically a magic close. It's a couple of sentences long, but it's dependent on you getting in position to pull the trigger on that. People say, well, I sent something out the other day to people. J. Douglas Edwards taught me. I was asking him how he developed a closing instinct, and he said to close too soon and too often. And for several years, I used that. It was the only thing I use. Now, although it's instructive to young people, young in experience and or age, the truth is I don't close too soon and too often. I close once, and I get about 86% of the people I say it to buy because I know when to pull the trigger. I spend time getting in position so that when I ask you to buy, I have the right to. You and I both know it. We agreed in advance. If I gave you certain facts and figures and so on, you would. And so when I finally lay it on you, a couple of sentences long, I'm stunned if they delay or anything. You've probably seen some of my posts in the groups where I'm forever saying, if you were a sales infiltrator, you wouldn't hear that. Or we sales infiltrators don't ever hear that problem. Sales infiltrator is in the Closers Part 2, page 257. Best thing it runs about 40 pages, I think. Best thing I've ever written about selling. I think it's the best thing ever written about selling. But it's not You grab them by the throat, you wrestle them to the ground, you grab their wallet, you ask for the sale 15 times, and then they'll buy. And so I saw that thing that's been floating around even before the internet for years. 5% of the buyers buy on the first attempt to close, and then it goes up the line and so on. And 70, I'm making up numbers, 70% buy on the 15th attempt. Well, whoever made up that statistic was not in selling, or if he was, he didn't keep track. Because if people didn't buy till the 15th attempt, none of us would be in selling, because no one has the gonads to ask 15 times for an order. And if you do, you're an ineffective salesperson.